Excellent. Well, thanks so much for taking the time to join, folks. Of course, AI is the hot topic for every industry, but I think particularly for accountants, you're in a position to leapfrog in terms of driving innovation when it comes to adopting AI. So we're going to start with a bit of an introduction on our view of the world when it comes to adopting Microsoft's AI. There's some very important points about being mature enough to adopt AI, because of course, as we all know, one of the things that's really hamstringing the UK accountancy sector at present is the legacy software vendors who don't exactly make it easy to integrate, and certainly don't have any meaningful AI in their roadmaps at present. So I think maturity is a key point for any practice looking to adopt AI. We'll do a bit of an overview of Copilot, very exciting product that's coming from Microsoft and is already being used by some of their larger customers at present. We'll do a bit of a demo as well and show you some of the latest features that are available. And then hopefully we'll have some time for questions at the end.
But just to add in, just because we're a fairly easily sized bunch, if there's any quick questions as we go along, I'm more than happy to kind of facilitate that as we go along. So yeah, please, if you have any longer questions, keep to the end. If there's any quick ones, just stick your hand up or on mute. We can handle that. So
yeah, much appreciated. Cool. So getting stuck in then, being mature enough for AI. And we are specifically referring to Microsoft AI, but really there's the whole AI world at present is pretty complex. And I think for any leader within accountancy, you need to have a reasonable understanding of this technology and have a vision as to how your practice is going to use it. Certainly within each department needs to have the vision as to how their workflow is going to be changing in the coming years, because this is coming fast and it's going to have a huge impact. So several of you are already familiar with our whole practice maturity concept. I'll run through it quickly at a high level here, and then we'll go into a bit more detail. So before you can think about adopting AI, you need to have the right foundations in place. You need to be collaborating effectively as a practice, and then you need to be doing 3 areas of project work, which is integrating, providing analytics, and then driving automation and AI adoption. So to go into a bit more detail in each of those sections, first of all, good foundations. As I say, many of you are familiar with this, but it really does bear repeating. So you need to have IT leadership at the board level. You need somebody who understands accounting, somebody who understands the technology, and has a written vision as to how the practice is going to adopt these changes that are coming. Servers, and this is really critical at this point, servers have to be up to date and in the cloud. There is no way you're going to be able to adopt AI if you're not on a modern platform. Proper use of Office 365. What we need to understand is that AI is going to be threaded through all of 365, and you're not going to get the benefit from it unless people are using 365 correctly today. I'd say that that's one of the highest priorities for practice. Get people used to using the advanced features of 365, like collaboration, etc. And this plays into the collaboration section as well. Quality IT support. Well, you're not going to get any work done unless you're well supported. We believe in a laptop first approach. Yes, not everybody needs to have a laptop, but more and more, what we're going to see is that even when junior people attend their team meeting, say in a meeting room, they will have to bring their laptops with them, or at least some sort of mobile device, in order to be able to share their metrics, share dashboards, insights on their customers, the status of the project. That will all be reported on electronically, digitally. And lastly, on the good foundations point, it's not particularly exciting, it's not particularly glamorous, but the amount of attacks that we're seeing today is quite scary, and particularly targeting accountants. Cybersecurity is key, and actually will only become more and more pressing as AI becomes more adopted in a more widespread way. Just last week, we heard of an attack on an accountancy practice where the attackers even knew the layout of the office for the accountants. So when they used AI to spoof the voice of one of the directors, they could even describe the layout of the office. Oh, would you mind coming? It was it's getting very mature in the way that people are scanning businesses now. Okay, next section, collaboration. So proper use of Teams. So use it for telephony, use it for collaboration internally and externally. The reason why this is so key when it comes to adopting AI is because Microsoft are putting their Copilot AI on top of Teams, both for the document sharing element, but then also in Teams meetings and also on Teams calls. And this is going to have a big impact. I mean, already we're seeing call centers using AI very effectively in order to get their agents to serve their customers better and more efficiently. I think probably what the most important bullet point on this whole slide is this next one, the third bullet point underneath collaboration tools, cloud document management. You need to, as an accountant, you need to have a document management system which is going to allow your people to use generative AI in the way that they are storing their documents in the first place, so automated tagging of those documents. How are you going to use generative AI to say create an inheritance tax report if you don't have that pool of human-created inheritance tax reports that sit in your document management system? How are you going to do that effectively if your documents are sitting on a bunch of shared drives or legacy document management systems? It's close to impossible. So, and then having a well-functioning intranet, it really is just becoming easier and easier because generative AI is going to take a lot of the strain in generating the content for that intranet, but also creating applications that will make it compelling for your employees to visit the intranet in the first place. Then we come on to the integration systems. Again, because of these legacy accounting systems, that does make it a bit more of a challenge to integrate these systems, but it's becoming more and more important because as your employees are generating documents and sharing documents with these modern Microsoft tools, a lot of the data that they need to inform these documents or inform the emails that they're sending to their customers, that is all locked inside of these legacy accounting systems. So there are ways to open these systems up and make it easier to extract that data. Absolutely key that you have a strategy in place for that. Analytics, both internally and externally. We're coming to the point where AI can effectively perform as a CFO for your organization, and you can have a natural language conversation with your Power BI dashboards in order to gain insights on your WIP and your aged debtors and your cash collected this period, etc., etc. That's where we are now. And then lastly, automation, proper AI adoption, robotics, and what we call a digital front door, or more formally, a portal for the practice in order to drive all interactions with the practice to a single location to standardize those interactions that you can then drive automation and AI for all of those different use cases. Okay, so some of you are familiar with this as well, but of course it has changed since the announcement of Copilot from Microsoft. So this is TTEC's philosophy of the world when it comes to accounting in Microsoft. Your practice management system, whether it's a legacy system or something more modern, it must be integrated with Microsoft because your practice management system is the brain of the practice. That's the master record. Office 365 performs as the spine, and then everything hangs off the side of that. So your legacy applications, we can see down here, they all sit neatly in Azure, things like Iris and CCH and Digita. They all sit on an Azure server. The reasons for that, very important when you're driving automation of those applications using robotic process automation or where possible APIs for integration. You need to have expandable hosting so that when you've got a whole bunch of robots driving your systems harder and faster than they've ever been driven before, the system can actually take it. Second of all, your cloud-based applications, so your true SaaS software. I'm sure you're using a bunch of the logos that you can see in the lower right-hand side of your screen. When you do an address change in your practice management system, you want that address change to flow through to your legacy applications and through to your cloud applications. And the easiest and most effective way to do that is through using Microsoft as the spine of the practice. This also allows you to do more exciting things like presenting Power BI reports to your customers based on data that you hold in about them in Xero and your legacy systems, so that all of this data can be presented to them from multiple sources. It really does make you very sticky as a practice. You also want to drive all of your interactions, as I said, through that customer portal, and you need to validate your data based on the records that the government holds on your customers. So companies house, HMRC, HM Land Registry, etc. The important thing here is that if you have integrated your legacy applications and your cloud applications with 365, because Copilot is threaded through all of the applications in 365, or at least it will be very shortly, that will be your reality. It's already the reality for businesses like Deutsche Bank, and the rest of us are catching up very soon. It means that you can make natural language queries about your customers no matter where the data sits. And that is why it's so pressing to integrate and modernize your systems. And then really the linchpin for all of this, because effectively in accountancy practice, documents are your currency. And so reducing the friction of document flow internally, externally, the way the documents are created, you've got to get that onto the Microsoft stack on SharePoint, which is an excellent document management system. However, what it's lacking is the governance layer, and that's what Intap provides. And Intap integrates with Outlook, so that when you're logging all of your emails, which have been generated by generative AI more increasingly, that those can be automatically logged inside of SharePoint. They can be tagged and arranged correctly, which also makes it easier to share those documents with your customers through the Microsoft-based customer portal. And then even during a Teams meeting like this, if one of the participants were to say, Dan, would you be so kind as to email me this deck afterwards? Well, then I will automatically have a task dropping into my to-do based on what that person requested, reminding me to send this deck to that individual. So this makes everybody significantly more productive.
Just to add in a really interesting point, I was talking to someone from Microsoft the other day who's now using Copilot, and they said to me, if I ever change job, my next job, I'm going to ask in the interview, do you have Copilot?
Yeah.
Because it's made my work so much easier. And one of the anecdotes that they gave in Copilot was a bit later, but it was brilliant. I was in a meeting with someone from Microsoft, and she just came back from holiday. She was in Barbados, and she was like, I came back from holiday, I opened my laptop, and Copilot said, would you like me to summarize the 200 unread Teams messages you haven't read? And in 12 bullet points, it summarized 2 weeks of Teams messages for her. So it really is going to be a real game changer for us all.
Yeah, the productivity is going to be absolutely incredible. Okay, so if we think about the daily life of an accountant, you're receiving a whole bunch of emails from your customers, from your prospects, and a lot of the activity that accountants have to engage in now is basically swivel chair activity. You're moving data from one system into another. And what AI is already making possible, just Microsoft's out-of-the-box Copilot AI, if you've integrated your legacy systems, is a scenario just like this. So what we see on the screen is a practice management system in the bottom right-hand corner. We've got our documents on SharePoint. We've got our customer based primarily on Xero. And our customer has emailed us asking us for some information because they're applying for a business loan. So before the advisor on the practice's side even sees that email, it is now possible to do this scenario. So first of all, we identify that customer based on the practice management system. We log into the document management system in SharePoint, attach the pertinent documents that customer is asking for. We can pull figures from Xero. So for example, the debt to equity ratio or your last year's profit margin, all of that data can be automatically pulled from Xero, entered into the body of the email while that email is being drafted by Microsoft's Copilot. At this point, the email is then presented to an advisor in order to check it, make sure that it's accurate, and then can be sent straight through to the customer. This is the reality of what Copilot is going to mean if you integrate your systems and if your people are trained correctly into how to enter the data, properly into the systems so that the AI is capable of digesting it and presenting it when requested. Now, I think skepticism is very healthy. And yes, on day one, when you get your Copilot subscription, it's not like this whole scenario is just going to pop out of the box and work for you. But this is the reality of what generative AI is capable of right now today. It's just a matter of the people catching up and configuring systems correctly so that the AI can step in and realize these extraordinary productivity benefits. So that's where we're heading. There is, however, a big roadblock, particularly for accounting practices. And it's really the legacy applications, which aren't open, don't expose APIs, don't play nicely with others. They've effectively got a completely locked down system. So in order to enable the possibility of that scenario that I outlined of generative AI responding to your customers before being sanity checked by your own internal advisors, you need to get the data out of these legacy systems, continue using the systems for sure. It's not like there are many other options, but you need to expose that data to Microsoft so that Copilot is capable of picking up figures, information about the customer. So the way to unlock these legacy applications is through RPA, so robotic process automation. So that steps in and that pulls out data and presents it on the Microsoft stack. So that's a key project for anybody looking to adopt AI. Also in meetings, I've already mentioned that Teams Premium now has AI baked into it, so that even during a meeting like this, the whole meeting will be summarized by the AI. Any tasks that are set will be dropped automatically into somebody's to-do list by the AI. But then also, even if you're face-to-face with a customer, you'd still want to have your AI assistant listening in on that conversation. And you can do that very simply by just switching on your Teams Premium license, popping your phone on the table, turning on the Teams meeting, recording it. You say to your customer, "Is it okay if my AI assistant helps me with note-taking and setting tasks for this session?" Of course, the customer says yes, and off you go. So no matter what the scenario, you want to have AI involved in the interaction. Because also importantly, anything that customer might say about their child's birthday or something like that, that should inform your marketing department that you ought to be selling this person inheritance tax reports, and they'll get some information on that. All of these things are now made possible by Microsoft's Copilot. It's just about your people adopting them correctly and your systems being set up to enable that change. And so that's what we come to here. You need to be technically ready, but then you also have to get your people ready to use this technology, because although it will out of the box provide some very useful things, as Daniel mentioned earlier, this lady at Microsoft who came back from her holiday and had 200 Teams messages summarized in 12 easy to digest bullet points. It's great that it's going to do that for everybody, no matter whether or not they want to adopt the technology or not. It just does it out of the box. For those who are really going to benefit from generative AI, they need to get their people ready to change their workflow and start getting AI involved in their tasks. So, key things, key takeaways for you. Get all of your apps into Azure. It's going to be much more difficult to adopt AI if you haven't done that step. Upgrade the relevant people within your organization to Teams Premium so that the AI can summarize these meetings and set tasks. And even it's getting to the point where it can advise your people on their cadence, on the way that they speak, how often they say and it also shows you who speaks the most during the meeting. So all of these things really, it makes us more able to serve our customers, more capable of interacting effectively with our customers. And then what, in our opinion, is absolutely critical, you need to move your document management system to something that is cloud-based. We're strong believers in Microsoft. I mean, everybody in this meeting is a strong believer in Microsoft. your whole daily work is all sitting on top of a Microsoft platform, on top of Microsoft Windows, but you need to move your document management system to something that is cloud-based in order for these AI tools to be capable of extracting information from your documents and consequently generating new documents based on that information. I mean, just anecdotally, yes, it's very powerful once your documents are sitting on a cloud document management system, and all of your legacy reports are available to the AI to help generating new ones. But people have already uploaded all of Tolly's into ChatGPT, into private GPTs, which mean that not only are those legacy documents informing the documents that are generated by the AI, but the current tax codes will also be informed by AI. So it's all pretty exciting stuff. AI is moving incredibly quickly, and Daniel, you've got a couple of insights that you wanted to share from the OpenAI.
Yeah, so did you share with audio? So we're just going to unshare for a sec because I've got some videos coming up now. So yeah, so I'm just going to show you some videos of some of the things that have been announced recently. This stuff is really quite amazing, and this was we did a version of this presentation about 2 months ago, and I think within about 2 weeks of the event finishing, we had to update half the slide. That much had changed in the last announcement. So I just want to show you some snippets and some videos of some of the things that were announced and just some of their demos, because I think it really is quite powerful. So I've only done a couple of snippets, but Dan, if you want to just jump.
Please do confirm the audio is coming through.
About a year ago, November 30th, we shipped ChatGPT as a low-key research preview, and that went pretty well. We followed that up with the launch of GPT-4, still the most capable model out in the world. And in the last few months, we launched voice and vision capabilities so that ChatGPT can now see, hear, and speak. And more recently, we launched DALL-E 3, the world's most advanced image model. You can use it, of course, inside of ChatGPT.
Just to remind everyone, yeah, so everything, I'm sure lots of people know this, but it's an important point to reinforce. So Microsoft have a significant stake in ChatGPT. They own 49% of it. Let's not get into what happened a couple of weeks ago with their board shuffle. That's another story for a pub one evening. Yeah, the point of that investment from Microsoft is everything you see in Copilot, and we'll come on to that later, and everything you see here is being, if you like, innovated and created in ChatGPT and in OpenAI, and then Microsoft, in effect, are taking that code and putting it into Microsoft Office and Azure. That's the way to understand this, right? And so the two, there is a lag between what you see on these videos from OpenAI and what Microsoft do, because they have to create it, release it, and then Microsoft have to adopt it. But that time period is getting shorter and shorter. We'll jump on just to the next couple, very pretty short.
We're launching retrieval in the platform. You can bring knowledge from outside documents or databases into whatever you're building. We're also updating the knowledge cutoff. We are just as annoyed as all of you, probably more, that GPT-4's knowledge about the world ended in 2021. We will try to never let it get that out of date again. GPT-4 Turbo has knowledge about the world up to April of 2023, and we will continue to improve that over time.
So again, and the other bit that we're going to see is, as we all know, GPT was only looking at a certain day. Where we're now moving with that is the documents bit you heard him touch on. So where we're going to now head with Copilot, and again, we'll touch on this a bit later, is, and again, this is why SharePoint is so crucial. You are going to be able to take, let's say, 25 SPA templates you've got in your document management system, but obviously it can't be a shared drive, or it can't be stuck in Iris or CCH. You won't be able to do it from there, but it's in SharePoint, and then drop it into GPT and say, create a master template for an SPA for a construction firm, and it will look at the 25 that you've got and construct you a new document. Yeah, and so that's where this value is starting to come, because obviously if you go to it today, it gives you an internet-based answer, because that's obviously its source of knowledge. Yeah, we're moving to a world now where it's going to be able to read your documents and your IP, and that's why Dan was talking about those SharePoint speeds being so important. Does that make sense to everyone? John, if you're watching this.
And with our new text-to-speech model, you'll be able to generate incredibly natural-sounding audio from text in the API with 6 preset voices to choose from. I'll play an example.
Did you know that Alexander Graham Bell, the eminent inventor, was enchanted by the world of sounds? His ingenious mind led to the creation of the graphophone, which etched sounds onto wax, making voices whisper through time.
This is much more natural than anything else we've heard out there. Voice can make apps more natural to interact with and more accessible. It also unlocks a lot of use cases like language learning and voice assistance. Speaking of new modalities, we're also releasing the next version of our open source speech recognition model, Whisper v3, today.
So yeah, you can see how speech now is really going to start to be transformed. So, whenever you call up an old or a traditional phone system today, it sounds very, very robotic and very not credible. We're moving to a world now again where AI is really synthesizing. We're actually going to have a problem, by the way, because the next version of this, take Alan, just because I can see you, you're going to be able to speak to it and it will copy your voice. Yeah, it's like it's going to be that. And that actually is a problem for all the reasons that you can imagine. But that is where we're headed. And you can just even hear the tonality of that speech is really quite impressive compared to what we traditionally have today. Okay, last one.
But next, let's talk about retrieval. And retrieval is about giving our assistant more knowledge beyond these immediate user messages. In fact, I got inspired and I already booked my tickets to Paris. So I'm just gonna drag and drop here this PDF. While it's uploading, I can just sneak peek at it. Very typical United flight ticket. And behind the scene here, what's happening is that retrieval is reading these files and boom, the information about this PDF appeared on the screen. And this is, of course, a very tiny PDF, but assistants can parse long-form documents from extensive text to intricate product specs, depending on what you're building.
So we're going to do a demo of this later, but imagine now a P11D or a P60, yeah, or a balance sheet or a fixed asset register, yeah. This AI can now read documents, as you saw in the demo there, understand what they are, contextualize them, and put out the relevant information without any intervention. And that is a really valuable use case for the accountancy world, where we don't have to, today you get sent a document, you open it and you find that information, and you do that many, many times a day. And that's going to be a really, really valuable use case. Okay, so that's kind of the OpenAI bit. If we now move on from that. So just so obviously we were explaining here that OpenAI is kind of where the innovation is coming from, and then Copilot is Microsoft's, if you like, the word Copilot and ChatGPT are going to become interchangeable, just so you start to understand parlance. But that is going to be a really big piece on that. So if we talk about Copilot, which is in effect Microsoft's piece on this. So effectively what Microsoft are talking about here is that large swathes of the world really need to be more efficient. There's a link there that you can all go and look about it afterwards, but it really talks about why and how people are changing the way they work. Just jump to the next slide. So what this is really about, and this is not my turn of phrase, but it's a useful one. So Microsoft are talking about digital debt. And what they mean by that is, especially with senior leaders, we end our days with an inbox that's still full of emails, yeah, or we end our day with a set of Teams chats that are not done, or we end our day where we were halfway through a document that we didn't finish. And so lots of people say, oh yeah, I'm worried about AI, it's going to take my job and all of that, but I haven't met a single person who says, oh, by the way, at the end of every day, I managed to achieve everything I wanted to achieve, yeah, it just doesn't happen. And so the statistics here from this Microsoft Work Trend Index survey is talking about 64% of people don't have time to do their job, 62% of people are just looking for stuff, and 60% of people talk about not having time for innovation. And what AI is really all about when you peel the covers away is if you look at, I don't know, take drafting and SPA as the example from earlier, previously you would have gone and looked for a template and started with a fairly basic version, and you would have spent a lot of time creating a version that you can then work with and tailor for a customer. And what AI is about is saying, rather than you do all of that, I'll do that prep work for you, and you can spend more time doing quality review. Yeah, because take the presentation, even this one, we all spend time creating slides. Do we all spend enough time thinking about, is the messaging right? Does the slide look correct? Is the tone right for the audience? Have I got too many? Because we're all on the treadmill just trying to pump stuff out as opposed to really thinking, is what I've got on here trying to achieve? And that is the point of the AI, is to give you, so we're not being doers anymore, we're being reviewers. Yeah, and that is a big change. And hopefully what that means is you get a bit of time back, but actually the quality should go up of the work. That should be where it is. Yeah, so again, you see here, 70% of people will delegate as much as possible of AI to lessen their workload. So and whilst people say they're worried about it, that statistic tells me people are not. And 82% of people say they need to prepare for it. And again, 76% of people say they'd be comfortable using it for admin. So it isn't this big, scary thing that the world is going to change tomorrow, especially not when we have old school accountancy apps. But it is this thing that is going to help us, and we all need to have a plan. And I think, it just needs to be communicated in that way, out to the staff in the appropriate way. Okay, jump to the next one. I quite like this slide as well. So with ChatGPT, I don't know if you know, did zero marketing, okay, absolutely zero. So it took us 16 years to get to 100 million phones, etc., 4.5 years to get to 100 million Facebook users, and 3 months for ChatGPT to have 100 million active users as well. So, that was with zero marketing budget as well. That was all just word of mouth. So I do think that's pretty phenomenal and testament to what they've done. Next slide. So this is a bit of a new slide, and apologies if it's slightly busy, but you're going to see lots more of this of us. So where we're now trying to work with customers on this is, how can you put Copilot in the center of your organization? Yeah. And then how does it now link into what's going on there? So if we take the Copilot labs in the top left corner, you can see all the Microsoft Office apps there. So Copilot is going to be fully integrated into Microsoft Office. And we will see some demos very soon about how that looks like. From a Windows perspective, and this will be rolling out in the next few weeks, you see that icon in the middle of the screen. That icon will appear on the bottom of your desktop, and you'll be able to use Copilot in the ChatGPT version in terms of sending it questions. Literally now you can access it, and that icon will appear shortly. There are plugins with all sorts of third-party applications, whether it be No or Dynamics or Power BI. And where we're now moving to beyond that is you can now create custom GPTs. So I know one person at the moment who is actually specifically working on a Tolly's GPT. So take the whole of Tolly's, put it into an AI engine, and then you can go and ask a Tolly's ChatGPT a tax question. And I think that's a brilliant use case, because where we all want to go to is, it's all well and good us going to ChatGPT and either not having the most up-to-date information or it not having the firm's house view of stuff. And where we're headed is you're going to be able to create your own house Copilot or house ChatGPT that's based on the house view. And I think that is something that's really going to be quite handy for everybody. So jump on for me. Yeah, so effectively, Copilot is the kind of generic name that we're seeing. And then you're going to see lots of different versions of this. So you're going to see Copilot Chat, Microsoft 365 Copilot, all sorts of different words. So Microsoft 365 Copilot is the Office 365 integrated version. So we'll see a video of that in a minute if you jump to the next slide. And then I know the date here is the 1st of November, and you might have seen this in the news, but for 90% of people on this call, that was only available for enterprise customers. So from Q1 next year, and I haven't been given the date because nobody knows the date, only Microsoft Engineering do, and they haven't released it, you will be able to use Copilot within your Microsoft Office. At the moment, the pricing is a minimum of $100,000 a year. That is definitely going to come down. I can't tell you how much. That's not the SME pricing. That's if you're an enterprise. Yeah, that is definitely going to come down. I don't have that. I would imagine it's going to be a minimum of a certain number of users, and I think they've announced the price point at about $30. So I would imagine they'll have a 50 or 100 user minimum would be my guess. Yeah, and therefore obviously paying $3,000 a month is very different than paying $100,000 a year. So, and that will continue to come down as time moves forward. But just to everyone appreciates this, there is a vast amount of computing power that is required to achieve this stuff. And the reason, I guess, for the split of the times is Microsoft has to go and buy chips from Nvidia. If you ever bought Nvidia stock a year ago, you've probably done pretty well now because they're now a $1 trillion company. And also they have to create a lot of this. Microsoft has done a really great job with the marketing, and you'll see some of the videos shortly, but the engineering side does need to play catch up. And you are going to see this kind of price breaks where, you know, every 3 to 6 months, they're going to reduce the price more and more and more. Okay, so I'm going to talk you through this video because it moves quite fast. And I apologize that it's slightly Microsoft Marketing American, but do watch it carefully and I'll talk it through as it plays. So what it did there, just to give you the first one, is it read your diary, yeah, and it said, okay, these are things you need to think about for each of those meetings that you've got coming up in your diary. And okay, keep going. So what you just saw there, so I don't know if you caught that, but I'll just explain it. So you said, we have an upcoming product release for our coffee machine. You could use this for corporate finance, would be a really great example. And you could say, right, so what it said there was, right, here's the brief, well, you have to brief person, write me a press release, do me the slides, and draft me a customer list, show me how many sales we made, produce me the results. So those are all things that would be done manually. And again, if you were to imagine a corporate finance example of that, you could say, I've got a company with the following characteristics, draft me a taster, yeah? Then you could say, draft me a set of slides based on the taster to talk through the company, and then identify me a list of targets and send them the taster, yeah? And that would be, and all of those things today would be done very manually. Copilot, again, would save you a lot of time now. Again, I don't know if you saw that meeting one. I love that one. I'm sure the same, lots of senior leaders here, you don't get to attend all the meetings that you want to. So it gave you, you couldn't attend a meeting, so you followed it, yeah? Then it gave you the summary of what were the actions and what were the key talking points and what were the unresolved issues. Again, you didn't have to attend the meeting, it just sent you that through Copilot. Okay. Voice at the end is bizarre. Anyway, yeah, so hopefully you got a feel there for just the number of use cases. Like that was a bit of a flash in the pan, so I was perfectly pausing it, but hopefully you got a feel for how that works. So one of the things that we're going to be seeing now is this 365 version of Copilot. So what that means is you're going to see Copilot integrated into Microsoft Office. If you don't recognize the icon on the far right, that's something called Loop. If you haven't had a play with Loop, that's a very handy little tool that integrates with Teams that you can ask to do certain tasks for you and set reminders. That lives today in your Teams already. So yeah, so let's now, so just be aware that that's the 365 version. Yeah, and then obviously security is obviously very, very important to Microsoft. So I guess the big difference between ChatGPT and this 365 Copilot is all of your data stays in your Microsoft 10. Yeah, that's kind of the big security piece. So at the moment, if people go to ChatGPT, whilst it doesn't store any data, they're taking data outside of your network, yeah, and putting it into ChatGPT and then exporting it to wherever they like. The big piece from Microsoft is the reason they're integrating into Microsoft Office is you don't have to take any data outside of the company network to be able to utilize the Copilot and ChatGPT toolset. And that's something that's really, really important to them and a big request actually from customers as well.
So one thing that's really important to understand about security is as much as AI is an extraordinary opportunity for driving productivity, it's also a bit of a threat. So one of the things that was maybe defending you from data leakage or employees seeing things that they shouldn't see in terms of documentation was that just trawling through a file structure was a bit of a sweat, a bit of a slog, and people didn't really know what they were looking for. But anybody with malicious intent, they can take Microsoft's AI, point it as a file system and say, find me pay stubs of directors in this business. And if you haven't set up that folder structure correctly with the right security in place, it will simply present it to them. So maybe it's a bit of legacy data from 5 years ago that's just hanging around, but it is absolutely critical that you modernize your document management system and ensure that things are set up appropriately with security in mind.
Okay, so this is a short video now just to give you a bit of insight as to how it starts to work. So that's just a bit of the under the hood more to just give you some context as to jump on. Again, we've been through that, so you can jump that slide. Okay, so now the next video is just an example of the Microsoft chat. So this is, so if you go, we're going to show you in a minute, if you go to copilot.microsoft.com now, you can start to play with some of this right now. So this is like the Microsoft equivalent of the ChatGPT, and it's the same code base, obviously, within their network and within their systems. So again, going back to the similar example earlier, we're using the chat engine and prompt it, and then let's go away and do it. Okay, just a couple more videos, and then we'll be done with it, and then we'll be on to the demo. So this, for an accountant, this is my favorite video. So this is your favorite tool, Excel. So this is a really good example of how we can use Excel for this within Copilot. So again, I think that's a great example for like management accounts. That is what management accounts teams do. They suck data out of Zero, they create analysis on it, they write commentaries, and I think that's a really great example of how you can be able to use Copilot to really drive some Excel. Again, for those in corporate finance, again, you often get given piles of data that need analysing as well. And so I think it's a really nice tool for doing that. Okay, the last one, and then we're going to move on to the video. So some of that is available right now. So if you buy the Teams premium license, I think it's about £6. Is that right? I think it's about £6 per user. So that AI meeting recap you can have now, where it will, as we're using this meeting, it will summarize the meeting, it will be recorded, etc. And then as they introduce Copilot, I mean, I love that feature because there are loads of meetings that I can't go to, but I would like to know what was discussed and what happened. And again, for a busy person, a busy diary, to be able to just get a really short summary without having someone to take notes in the meeting and with it being automatically recorded and easily achievable, I think is a really, really handy step for us all. I also quite like that I don't know if you noticed, it was actually called the marketing catch-up meeting, and lots of senior people sometimes struggle to actually go to that. I can actually think I struggle to go to that meeting sometimes. So I think that's a really nice use case. So we're going to do a demo in a sec, but before we get there, so things that we can do to get started today. So like Dan spoke about earlier, getting all your data into Azure and SharePoint is absolutely critical. If your data is stuck in an old school accountancy document management system or on a shared drive, that is not going to work with this tech. The file permission things is really important. So obviously, like Dan explained earlier, sometimes it's quite difficult to comb through some of those legacy systems. But if you were just to dump it all into SharePoint without really thinking about it, and the permissions and the security aren't correct, then you could just go to Copilot and say, oh, hi, Copilot, what is my director's salary? And if you haven't got the permissions right, it will give the user that information back. Or you can say, how does my salary compare to my peers? And if you haven't got the security right, it will just go and find it. And so it suddenly becomes a lot easier. Information that was previously probably hidden but accessible or not known that they had access, actually Copilot is just going to go and find it. And we all know, one of the biggest bits of feedback I get from customers is we waste time searching. We can't find stuff. Yeah. And the whole point of this is it's really going to make that much, much easier. And then the data loss prevention is really about, obviously, the network is all much more accessible with this. So how do you stop people from taking advantage of that and taking data out of the network? So there is some real, this is coming in Q1 of next year. Most people on this call, I would guess, are not using a cloud document management system or SharePoint. Well, you've got 4 months, 5 months now to do that project ready so that when this launches, you can take advantage of it straight away. Yeah, and we've all got, so I know it's sometimes frustrating to see the demos and the videos not be able to, get it tomorrow, but actually there's a whole load of prep work that we all have to do in order to get ready for this.
Well, so I'm going to run through a couple of use cases that are now possible with generative AI from Microsoft. Some of you will be familiar with this. For those of you who aren't, I'll just give a quick summary of what you're seeing on the screen. So this is Practice Gateway. This is designed to be the single location for every interaction between a practice and their customer. It's a portal product that's built on top of the Microsoft stack. So this is a Microsoft Dynamics portal, but fully customized for accountants and also integrated with the leading accountancy software, be it Digita, CCH, etc., etc. So what we're looking at on the screen here is personal tax returns. And I'd be very happy to do a complete demo of all of the functionality because it is deep and rich at this point. But what I'm going to do is just show you how Azure Vision, which is built on ChatGPT's Vision product, can work for your customers. So here, the way that customers would traditionally share information with their accountant might be just responding to an email of an aide-memoire. What we've been doing for the last few years is that the accountant can just fill in their information. So, for example, here they can fill in their interest received on a bank account. Okay, that's great, that's good, and it does the data entry automatically into your compliance applications. But what we've now built, and this is what live for customers, is that let's take, for example, a P60. I've got a dummy P60 here with a couple of simple figures that are entered into it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to upload that document. I'm going to go and choose the files. Here on my desktop, I've got that P60. So I open that. So as the customer, or indeed even as the advisor or a very, very junior person, they could be performing these actions. I am uploading that P60. And as it uploads, what Microsoft Vision is doing is passing that document. So you don't even need to tell it that this is a P60. You can simply upload the P60. It will identify, based on all of the knowledge that T-Tech have trained me on, is that, okay, this is a P60 document. That means the pertinent figures will be in these locations. And what we can see here then is in the employment section of this form, is that it has indeed extracted the gross pay and the net pay from this P60 document. So this is live right now. But the real winner here is that because we've got these integrations using robotic process automation and sometimes at the database level as well, is that these figures will be automatically pulled through directly into that compliance software. So it means the data entry part of the process is gone. It means that the customer's frustration of having to do any data entry at all, that's gone as well. We're coming to the point that the customer will be able to just dump all of their documents into your secure portal, and that data will automatically be uploaded into your compliance software. Now, of course, you still want to do validation steps and all that sort of stuff to be sure, but this is where we're heading. And this is really only the first step. Already with this, we're saving the customer a ton of frustration, and according to the ICAEW statistics, we're probably reducing the amount of time it takes to do a personal tax return by up to 70%.
Can't just say that is impossible.
It's pretty cool. So yeah, this is what Microsoft's generative AI has already made possible. And this is very much the threshold. And we're proud of what we've built here. This is great work. We think our developers have done a great job. But this is really the start of something huge. And we believe we're at the forefront of that in serving accountants in the UK. So I've got a couple of little demos as well about what people can already use Bing Chat or a Chat GPT for. So if you note this URL, we'll share this around on email afterwards as well. But you've already got access to this. And what you need to understand about this is that unlike ChatGPT, this Copilot, which is powered by Bing Chat Enterprise, this Copilot, your data doesn't leave your Microsoft Enterprise domain. That's really critical. It means you can put customer identifying information into this tool. I've just got a couple of AI demos that I've got preloaded here. So it's clicked. I'm just going to take this data dump and then ask it to produce a UK-based financial statement based on this balance sheet and income statement. And I've also requested it that it formats it as a table for Excel. So if we take a look at the response that it's producing, so it's starting these figures, and we can automatically copy them. So it's doing all of that formatting for us. What we can now ask it to do, as it's completing that table for us, is we can ask it to even write the covering email. It's going at a reasonable pace, certainly faster than most employees can work. And again, it's reiterating that this data is protected. So I'm now asking it to write a covering email based on that data. And so it will extract the pertinent figures from that financial statement. No problem, Alan. We'll upload the recording for you. So here again, we've got a nice email that's being written. It's pulling out figures that will be pertinent to that customer. So this is saving an advisor so much time, so much time. They can actually be providing advice rather than doing donkey work like writing a simple boilerplate email like this. And it's all set up very nicely so that I can just hit copy and that goes straight to my clipboard and I can paste that into Outlook. But remember, this will be baked into Outlook natively very soon. And so you want your system set up to be able to take advantage of that. Another little example of using ChatGPT. So yeah, I'm going to do this one in ChatGPT. I find it just a little bit better as a research assistant, and I'm not exposing any identifying customer data here. So I'm using GPT-4. What I've done, I've taken the URL of this PDF, which is an official HMRC document, the Guide to Keeping Tax Returns. It's just a very, very simple example. I'm sure you can get significantly more complex than this. And I've told ChatGPT what it is. That's a very useful little tip for when you're prompting. Tell it it's a research assistant. Tell it it's a UK-based accountant. Tell it what it is, and it will provide much higher quality responses. And also, and this is a little bit bizarre, but I found this to be true, also be polite. ChatGPT comes up with much better responses when you're polite. And I've also instructed it as to how to structure its response. And again, I'm happy to share any of these prompts with you if you want to share these with your customers. And as always, when doing a live demo, there's a slight error with the browsing, but again, might be that I don't have my plugins enabled, but we'll see. So what it ought to do is access this PDF document using Bing. No, it's got an issue, but it's still recognizing the instructions that I've given it in terms of the sections, and also the question that I asked. What I'll do, given that it's playing up a bit, I'm going to do a new topic in Copilot, and I'll give it a whirl, see what it produces for us there. So it's already gone to that URL, so we're streets ahead there. It's pulled out a couple of excerpts from the document. It's answered my question about how tax records ought to be kept, and then it even has a few other considerations here of other government documents that you ought to be aware of when it comes to this topic. So very, very useful stuff indeed. And this is why I'm saying that, yes, technically, it's very important that you get ready for adopting this, but your people need to change the way that they think, and also just your marketing department. they ought to be creating much more exciting, engaging content, not just in terms of text-based content, but also graphics. So this is a free resource. You've paid for this already with your 365 subscription, and you've got access to generative AI for image creation. So I've just asked Copilot to make me a picture of a hedgehog kicking a football, but you could equally do something with the Chancellor holding up his red box and your branding. Yes, indeed, Hugo. This is accessible to you right now. What I'm showing you here. This is part of your subscription.
That's actually much. We did this demo, about a month ago, and that was based on the previous version of DALL-E.
Yeah.
And actually, the quality of the imaging in that time is improved significantly. So yeah,
I mean, it is amazing the sorts of things it can produce, and importantly, in seconds and for free. So you no longer need to be paying a graphic designer for fancy images when you do your budget statement review. Okay, so those are just a few examples. Now, one thing that we are offering folks now is to do an assessment of how ready they are to adopt Copilot. So this is something we're doing pro bono for free. It takes 20 minutes. We'll send an email around after this. Just pop some time in my diary. We'll run through the assessment. It takes 20 minutes together. And on the back of that, we produce a report. And yes, obviously, we're using generative AI in order to make that possible. But I've got an example of the report here somewhere. 7 votes. Go. Yeah, so this report we generate on the back of it, and you can use ChatGPT or Copilot to summarize the report for you to make it easier to digest, but it's already at an executive level. So it runs through your current position and how easy it will be for you to adopt Microsoft's AI, what capability group you fall into in terms of the skills and training that your people need, in terms of your systems, in terms of your decision-making processes, and the business applications that you need to address in order to adopt AI. Your capability levels in general. This is a very, very useful document when it comes to persuading your organization that you need to make significant changes in order to be ready to adopt Microsoft's AI when it comes available. As I say, happy to do that for you pro bono. We'll sit down 20 minutes and we can produce this document for you on the back of that. So very useful stuff.